be creating a meaningful ceramic tile. This is a mini project because it should only take you about 2 to 3 class periods to complete. So the lesson objectives are you're going to create a tile that uses at least 2 different textures and has at least one 3D attachment. We're going to design a tile that conveys something meaningful for you. So make this actually meaningful. You're going to use the score and slip technique to attach parts of the clay onto the tile. We're properly and neatly cutting out a shape using a fettling knife. You might be using texture rollers and mats to create texture. We're using excellent craftsmanship when cutting out, attaching, and carving out designs. And eventually you'll be glazing these tiles. So just note you're going to be planning 2 different designs, but just creating one tile. It's always good to have a couple options. So this is an actual student example. These are other examples made out of clay. So just think about with your clay tile, there are differences of levels, and that this is the clay. And so when you cut into it, when you carve away, that becomes subtractive. When we add clay on top of the surface, that's an additive process. So here's an in-progress example of somebody working on a ceramic tile. This example, they actually took separate pieces of clay and attached it on top. So that's a method of adding 3D attachments. Here's 2 more examples. So this one has some textures here in the background. There, it looks like there's like 3D or carved away parts in the background of that one. These ones have 3D attachments. There's definitely textures here and here. These ones have a lot more texture as well. That's pretty cool, those little textures there. And these ones are also done by my students. So again, lots of different textures. These were created using the cookie cutters. These 2 textures here were created using texture mats. Some more examples. So again, make a design that is meaningful for you. These are both glazed. So the requirements is you're going to create a ceramic tile that conveys something meaningful for you. What we mean by meaningful is it could be based on someone you know or a favorite interest of yours, like a favorite sport or a favorite food. Maybe it's a belief you have or a favorite place, right? Just something that has important significance to you. Your ceramic tile should have at least 2 different textures and at least one 3D attachment. Yes, you can include words if you want to include words on your tile. So how do you start? So we're going to plan 2 possible designs on the planning worksheet. After Ms. J has reviewed your ideas, then you'll move on to creating your tile. So when you're sketching your designs, remember this is made of clay. So one easy way to think about it is to focus on using symbols to represent your ideas. So these are 2 or 3 sketches I did. So this was a square. Your tile might be a square format, or it could be a circular format. And this was another example here. So I actually made some notes like this border. I was thinking of using some sort of texture roller. I probably should have gone and looked at the actual texture roller design. And then I'm going to draw some designs on here. I'm also noting like this is going to be 3D, that's going to be 3D. Again, I'm only making one. So when I see your designs though, I'm going to ask you, what are your 2 different textures? What is your 3D attachment? We need at least one 3D attachment. You can certainly add more than one 3D thing to it. Here's another drawing I did in the past, so you can see I noted what's going to be 3D, what's going to be drawn on. All right, after I have seen your drawing, you're going to get my signature. Then you're going to need to get a piece of clay from me. When you get that clay, it's a good idea to take your rubber rib to smooth it out just in case, because if there's any marks on it, you want to make sure your tile is smooth when you start. Next, you need to grab either your square or circle template. Again, it depends on your plan. And let's just for this little demo, I'm going to use the square one. So how to use this template is you're going to place it on top of the slab. You'll need a fettling knife, and you're going to carefully cut off the edges. So this basically becomes kind of like a stencil. And all this extra clay that you cut off, save it because you're going to use it for 3D attachments. Now, after you remove your template, we're going to actually smooth out the edges of the clay. So what I did was I sprayed some water on my hands, and just make sure you smooth out the edges, because if you leave them sharp or unfinished, it's going to fire that way. So once you have your tile cut out, then you're actually ready to start adding your textures. If your clay seems super soft, just be aware it might be a little difficult to add certain textures. So this one here, I'm just going to, again, demo a little bit for this example. Now I need to add a border to this tile. So what I'm going to do is actually take a ruler. I'm going to use a ball stylus tool because I don't want really thin lines. And I'm going to draw carefully, just using this as a straight edge. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm not going to measure it exactly. Now you'll notice when the clay is really soft, you're going to end up with these little boogers of clay. It's a little annoying, but that's just what it is when the clay is softer. I think I said I'm going to use a texture roller. So I've already pulled out the texture roller. Now if you need to smooth out parts of your clay, part of your tile, you can get some water on your fingers and smooth it out that way. And if you kind of mess up, you can carefully smooth it all back out. If you want to make your lines a little deeper, let's say. I'm using this instead of a needle tool because I can get thicker lines. If I use a needle tool, I end up with thinner lines. So here is my texture roller, so I can carefully put it here on the edge and just create a design. Okay, I don't like how that part worked, so I'm going to smooth that back out. I'm showing you this so in case if you don't like the way it turned out. Now if you totally mess up on your tile though, you're going to have to start over. You're going to have to actually wedge your clay and see me on how to roll it back out. I'm not going to give you a new piece of clay to start with. Now the next part, I'm doing this zigzag design, so I'm actually going to take this sculpting tool and just draw using the edge. So again, there's many ways to create texture using clay. You don't have to just draw everything on. Alright, so at some point you're going to have to add your 3D attachments. So I didn't fully draw out my little mushroom, but I've cut out the shape and I'm going to be ready to attach this to it. It's a little small, but we'll just go with it for the demo. So when you're ready to attach anything 3D, make sure you grab a container of slip as well as a paintbrush. So you'll need to use your tool. I like to use a needle tool to score. You need to score the entire side that we'll be attaching. I'm also going to be attaching this to this area of the tile. So you can see I already did the background. So I'm scoring here as well. I'm taking my slip. It's okay if your slip's a little cakey. It doesn't have to be super wet. And then we're going to put it on top. And that slip is going to do its job. Now, you might want to actually take a tool to remove any extra slip or marks that you don't want. So that's kind of... Let's pretend that I'm done with my tile. Okay, I'm obviously not done. I need to add more stuff to it, but pretend I'm done. So what you're going to do is you're going to need to use your phone to take a picture of your finished tile, submit that photo in Canvas, and you're going to actually turn over your tile. Make sure you put your initials and class period. So we're going to pretend that I'm in period 4. And then you're going to turn this in with your drawing in the designated spot in the clay room.